say you went to the grocery store and you had your shopping cart full of all your veggies and all your healthy food, and you're all set and you're ready to go. And there's like, there's really long lines, right? Mm-hmm. And then like all of a sudden they open up a new checking, right? And they're like, hey, they look to you and say, you want to come over? And you come over, right? And you're like, oh yeah, all right, I'm in. And then you get into line, and as they start to check you out, how would you feel if they said, well, you're the only one in line here now, so we're going to renegotiate all the prices on these items in your cart?
I'd be pissed off.
Yeah, it would piss you off, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, we're kind of heading into a market that's going to be like that, right?
Absolutely. We're in it.
Absolutely. We're in it. We're in it. And so that's why we're calling this one Pre-Listing Activities Don't Negotiate Twice, because we don't want your sellers to be in a situation where they've just come through the checkout line and they're with that buyer who's now ready to go. And they're like, well, I'm the only one here, so we're going to redo things. Right.
And, this goes for a buyer too, because it sets expectations. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of time buyer has an expectation of something. So to do these activities helps both seller and buyer.
Exactly. Well, why don't we get into a little bit of the backstory on this,
Sure.
on like why this is happening and what's going on. So
okay. You want me to run with that?
Run with it.
Okay.
Run.
All right. So I started doing pre-listing inspections, including termite for us in California. That's a huge problem for us, especially Southern California. And what it did, and I've been doing this for close to 3 years now, and I actually took this idea from Northern California because in San Francisco, it's very similar to the way you guys run in North Carolina, where here's the disclosure, end of story, you're moving forward. Mm-hmm. And what that has done is that has created an expectation for the seller to understand their beautiful property does have some issues. And it's not me telling them this. It's the inspector who's certified and licensed and
right.
This is what they do. And it also sets an expectation for, especially during the time where we had $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 in overbids, it allowed us to say, you sure you want to be at this number? Here's full disclosure. And so it stopped negotiating twice, which is where the name of this podcast is Don't Negotiate Twice. It also allows a buyer to go, oh, that crack in the foundation was repaired. It's not a current foundation issue, so I'm willing to spend more. So it gives everybody as close to full disclosure as you can have. Obviously, we want to have our people do another inspection, a buyer to do their own inspection, because not only for liability, but also we want them to make sure that they have the right to choose whomever they want to do the inspection. But the bottom line is this stops that singular negotiation piece, which is what you're talking about in the grocery line. Because if you have one person under contract, now they're renegotiating again, and you've lost all your other buyers, that's crap for your seller. And we don't want that. We want the best for our sellers. So this is super, super, super big.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I know, in our market, we used to do like some of these things and then stopped doing them because the market was so hot. And, we weren't, because we're an as-is contract and our due diligence fees got so high, people were locked in. Well, that's changing.
Right.
And so it becomes really, really important. So, so that's the big picture on this. So why don't we zoom in and, you're such a master on this list. I'm going to let you run with that a little bit, then I'll chime in.
Okay. So I've already gone through the pre-inspection. What I didn't dig into was we also do sewer scopes because a lot of our properties are older and the sewer lines from the house to the street are the responsibility of the homeowner or the buyer. So there's that piece that you can throw in, and also termite inspections. Now, one thing I make very clear to my sellers when we do these inspections is to, I'm not asking you as your listing agent to perform these. What I'm saying is let's disclose this to the buyer so that they can't renegotiate it after we go under contract. So as much as you can give, and there's a lot of things on our Zoom in list that you do that I don't do because it's not really part of our contract. Yep. And I want to hear a little bit about those.
Exactly.
But the basis of this is the more you can give the consumer so that they feel confident and comfortable writing their best offer and putting their best foot forward, ultimately, the smoother the transaction is going to be. So one of those things was on this list that I don't do is the structural review. Tell me a little bit about that.
Right. So what we'll do, we'll do the pre-inspect, which, by the way, on all my listings going forwards for the last few months, this is what we're doing. We do a pre-inspect,
right.
Thanks to you, and it's working.
Yeah.
Our inspectors will note if there's any items of structural concern. And so then we'll get a licensed structural engineer to come in behind that to review the property and issue a report that's stamped. And what that does is that their license is on it and says, this is what I found. And it either say, no issue here, or what needs to be done to remediate it. And then if there is remediation needed to be done, then we show the invoices behind that on what's been done. And that stamp goes forward with the property. So that way the buyer's getting something also that when they go to resell, they've got that they can show it.
Right.
So that takes away a lot of issues by doing that. It's just good homework. And, the other biggie is if we go into the crawl space and we're finding moisture issues or fungi, right, mold, then we can get that treated beforehand. And nothing kills, in our market, nothing kills deals quicker than structural issues or mold. So you can get ahead of all that stuff and not lose a transaction.
Yes.
So those are the big ones. The other one that I don't think you do are surveys.
Correct. We don't.
Right. So we do surveys, but it would be rare for us to do a survey prior to, but we'd want to refer to an older one to take a look at that and make that available, letting them know that they're responsible to get their own. But if that shows lot lines, easements, if there's any encroachments that they've been taken care of, if known, and we have encroachment letters. Now we're getting a little technical, but any of the stuff that shows up on a survey that's been documented. So we can take a good look at that.
Here's a great thing, because as you're saying this, I'm like, oh my gosh, a structural review for us in San Diego is about $4,500. I don't know how much it is in.
Oh, our
North
structural
Carolina.
Reports are like $500.
Yeah, ours are so expensive
for a structural report. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're very, and same with a survey. Surveys and structural reports are very expensive here. But what I wanted to circle around to is the fact that a lot of times when I'm in the listing appointment or we're getting ready to do these things and my sellers are kind of going, God, this is a lot of money and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. The average amount that they're spending is under $1,000. So it's between $700 and $1,000, depending on the size of their home and what subsequent reports we do. But the average prior to me doing this was $7,000 in repairs. Agents either wrote $5,000 or $10,000, and over the course of 20 years, that's a lot of money. So I researched that, and they say to me, "Oh my gosh, I'm spending $700," I say, "Well, average they're going to try to get is you're going to land at around $7,000. That's a pretty big difference, and it really is. It's a huge difference." Yeah. So that's the talk track I use when I'm talking to my people. What do you say?
My talk track's a little different from that. I say, look, what we want to do is we want to know if there's any issues. And we want to be ahead of that and be able to, offer, because we are an as-is contract, we want to be able to say what as-is is.
Right.
So that they are going in with eyes wide open. And then we have the opportunity, if we find some things, we can control that with our people. So that if we do find, the biggest are moisture, like I said, and moisture and mold. And so if we find that, I've got great people that can do that work that are reasonable, that warrant their work. And we're not having somebody fly in and say, oh, it's a $10,000 fix when it's really like a $1,500 fix. So we can control that. And then we're not having an issue where the deal's going to blow up, because that cost is huge, because now you're going back on the market. Now you've got to explain why it blew up, and people don't, oh, wait, they didn't want it. Oh, then I want it. Right. That's not the psychology. Right. So it's almost a little more binary. Like, your deal's going to stick and you're going to sell your home for more quicker, rather than having to get tripped up on something we didn't know about, and you're going to get less and longer.
Yeah. Here's another layer to that too. If you, just like your shopping cart line thing, you have a buyer, they're super excited. They're just like, oh, I'm over the moon. I got my offer accepted. Woo. And then it's like going on a date and finding out, the guy you're on a date with was an axe murderer.
Yes.
So you literally get all that information up front so that all buyers go through some buyer's remorse. All sellers actually go through seller's remorse of some sort, but it really tightens the curve of it, because, oh yeah, I already knew that, there's nothing new here. So their excitement level still stays at a good space, which is really, really important. We want them to be happy when we give them the keys. We don't want them to be, throwing them at us.
Right. It's just a much smoother, cleaner process when you do this. It's more professional. Yeah. And let's face it, when you don't do it, you're some of these, you're holding your breath when the day of the inspection, like, oh my gosh, what are they going to find down there? Right. Well, you've already checked it out. You know what you got, and you've dealt with it. And I love your line that you use. I don't think you said it, but it's when you you make the report available to the buyer, right? Yep. You show all the repair invoices, and then you say, look, this is what we've done. We're not doing any more if it's on this list. If you find something else, of course, we're willing to have a discussion, but this is what it is. Yes. If you find anything different, the seller's willing to chat. I don't know if they're going to do anything. They're willing to talk to you. If you find the same things, sorry, you already knew about them. That's right. Yeah. Love it. So love it. The bottom line is, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is you need to build this list into your listing process. It's a checklist you're going through. It shows you're professional, and it's a great, great talk track to guide them through what it's involved to successfully sell a home in this market.